might have heard of something called the Alexander technique. Alexander was another expert on movement. Alexander technique, some pianists do it. It's very popular among singers for getting everything aligned and relaxed. And here's what Mr. Alexander said. He said, there's only one way that we should work. We have to do things the natural way and give nature a chance to help us change and grow. So that's the second principle of having a good tone, is that your movement has to be natural. Now, you might say, well, Scott, of course it has to be natural. What are you talking about? Naturally, it has to be natural. But I see so many people approaching their technique in an unnatural way. I heard a teacher say, when you're getting ready to play the piano, you should make your hand like a claw and make it very strong. Well, I know what Mr. Alexander would say. He'd say, well, how can that be natural? If you hold your hand in a claw for very long, your muscles are going to get tired. You're going to fatigue. If you do it for a long time, you're going to injure yourself. So Mr. Alexander would say, forget about it. No, it's not natural. We have to do things the natural way. So movement should be effortless, principle number one. Principle number two, we have to use the natural movements of the body and the arm and the fingers if we're really going to have good tone. And of course, that means good technique. I'm going to ask everybody a question. You can start thinking ahead now. I'm going to say, when you press down the piano key, what happens inside the piano? Well, most students know that when you push a piano key down inside the piano, the hammer comes up and it hits the strings. Okay, that's pretty easy. Most people know that. Here's the second question. Second question's a little harder. I get lots of wrong answers on this. Where does the hammer actually hit the key? Is it right at the top? I'm sorry, hit the string, right at the top of the key? Is it in the middle of the key? Or is it when you get all the way to the bottom? When does the hammer hit the string in terms of the key descent? Well, lots of pianists think that it hits the hammer hits the string at the bottom of the stroke, but actually that's wrong. It's in the middle. It's about a third of the way down, about 35%. If you want to try it yourself, once we're done with our workshop, go over to the piano and just push the key down very slowly. And you'll notice for the first third, it's pretty easy to press, and then you'll feel a little resistance about 1/3 of the way down. That's where the hammer hits the string. So maybe you're thinking, well, that's nice, Scott. So what? Well, see, when you're aiming the energy of your finger to play the note, you have to aim it at the sound point. The sound point is that place about a third down. And when you get to the bottom of the key, you've got to relax your finger. Because when you get to the key bed all the way to the bottom, you can't influence the sound anymore. The hammer has already hit the string. My teacher told me, and Miss Marcus told me too, play to the bottom of the keys. And what she meant was play with an energetic finger stroke and make a strong motion. But actually, if you play to the bottom of the keys and you keep pressing, you're going to injure your hand. Because what happens is some muscles are pressing down on the keys and other muscles are trying to lift the finger for the next note. And the muscles in your hand start pulling. One is pressing, one is trying to move. And that's when you injure your hand and it's impossible to get a good tone. So the key is to aim the energy of your finger about a third down and then relax it as it touches the bottom of the key. That way we avoid what's called, in piano technique, it's called key bedding. Key bedding means pressing too hard on the bottom. What do you do if you want a loud, strong sound? You hit the key a little faster. What do you do if you want a beautiful singing tone? You hit the key a little slower. It's actually much more complicated than this. I'm just giving you the very, very step one. But actually, what we just did is go over something that's really important. There used to be a medical center for musicians at Roosevelt Hospital in New York. It was called the Center for Performing Arts. And I was at a conference one time and I talked to the doctor who was a director of it. And I said, do you get a lot of injuries from pianists? And he go, lots of injured pianists. And I said, what do you think is the main cause of injury? And he said, he thinks the main cause of piano injuries is key bending, holding your fingers down with too much energy at the bottom of the key and not relaxing enough after the sound has already happened. So this is principle number 3. Understand where the sound happens when you press the key and make sure you don't key bend.